Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Never done this kind of video before. Super original Q&A video. Never been done before. First of its kind. Alright, fair enough. People have done Q&As before, but I haven't done one. This past week I asked some of my followers, friends, clients, midnight, as it is late summer. It's actually still pretty warm. So I'm out here in a t-shirt, which is rare out here. I'm going to cover mostly training questions in the beginning, but if you skip to about halfway through, we're going to start doing outside of training, and there's some silly questions in there, but I'm going to treat them with the same level of care. We're going to go in deep, we're going to break it down, right? So it is Monday. I don't know when I'm going to upload this. Today was check-in day, so it's a big day at the desk. I've been doing check-ins, editing, and I've just cooked my last meal, and I thought what I'd do is sit out here, get through the questions. So for yourself, grab a drink. We're going to get into some Q&A questions. So without further ado, let me pull up the bad boys. And if you ask one of the questions I'm answering today, you're a real one. Love for that. Right, where are the questions? All I can see is pictures of me and a lemur. Edit and J, put up on the screen. Here we go. So first question. If protein powder had flavours inspired by everyday life, what's the worst flavour? Wet. Laundry that you were supposed to dry, or you left out to dry, then it rained, and when you bring it back in, that damp smell. Imagine that as a flavour. Worst one. Number 2. What's your most embarrassing moment in the gym? That is a good question. I would say one of the more embarrassing times was I used to be an absolute stimhead. Probably coming back from the days where I was a little bit nitty, right? Not gonna go into details. If you watch my content, you might know. There was a time at the gym where I'd taken, it was a bunch of pre-workout. I'm not gonna say exact amounts because I don't remember exactly. But it would have been the equivalent of maybe a double scoop of pre-workout and a can of Monster. Maybe another half can of Monster. We're talking around 600-700 milligram in one sitting. I remember I was at the cable stacks back at Pure Gym where I used to work, and it all started kicking in. I got disassociative, things were spinning, my head was spinning, my head was pounding for a start. It wasn't good. And I basically ended up slumping down in front of the cable station. I had this one guy ask me if I was okay, and obviously at this point I was like, I don't know what the fuck was going on around me. And that would probably be one of the most embarrassing gym moments. You should see this lighting setup, by the way. Editing Jake, put this in. I've been trying to invest, right? Why have I missed a couple of weeks of YouTube uploads? I'm not an excuses guy, right? You guys will know that from my content. Sorry, the excuses I'm about to give, I could have uploaded anyway. We're actually just 2 weeks from the end of my dieting phase, which we're about to wrap up. So a lot of my energy, the limited that is left, I've been focused solely on the clients and the main business stuff. I will get back to the YouTube stuff, hopefully weekly after today, because next week is going to be a little vlog starting. So I do apologise about that. I was also ill, and as we all know, man flu, game over. Anyway, pick this lighting setup. We've got this little light here, this one over there. We've also got a light bar sitting behind the old seat. How's it look? Probably shit, because I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, question number 3. I think it's question number 3 we're on anyway. If you had to fight one animal barehanded for survival, which one would you? See, I'm not one of these people that overestimates my ability to fight wild animals, right? Wild animals, different breed. They've got built-in weapons, claws, teeth. I know we've got teeth, but so I'm not one of these people that's going to overestimate my ability to fight a wild animal. I do, however, believe firmly, with my few years of BJJ experience, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think I could take a smaller wolf. I think I could take one. I think it's going to go in to bite me, right? Even if it gets a hold of the leg, right? Takedown defense, I'm going to sprawl. I'm going to take its back, right? Either sink the rear naked choke, I probably could choke it out. Or I'm going to grab its leg, set my hips, fucking break its leg, right? You break a wolf's leg, you break 2 legs, what's it going to do? It's immobilised, right? At that point, ground and pound, or finish it with the choke. So I'm going to say a slightly smaller than average wolf. If someone only has 3 hours a week to train, what's the most effective way to use them? 3 hours is actually a long time in the gym, right? A lot of people waste so much time in the gym, scrolling on their phone, not having focus when they're in their session. And to be honest, it's one of the main reasons as well that I feel a lot of people don't make progress, is because I think it's more of a societal issue these days, isn't it? That people are so distracted. It's like all this stimulus constantly. They get to the gym where you do your set, you rest, and then what do? You get distracted, you get talking to people, you're scrolling on fucking YouTube, TikTok, at Instagram, right? God forbid, if you're watching this while you're training, put the phone away. I don't even care if you don't come back to the video. Put it away. You're gonna have a better session. But 3 hours a week is a lot. I would say with 4 intense, higher intensity sessions, standard bro split. You could do chest and biceps, shoulder triceps, no, chest and biceps, pull, shoulders, triceps, legs, 45-minute blast sessions, lower volume but high intensity. 3 hours is a lot of time, right? Because a lot of people have this conceived idea that you've got to like train every day or train for at least 5-6 days a week for long sessions, high volume. Not necessary. Some of my best gains were done on higher intensity sessions, right? High intensity training. When I got my first coach, Jake Abbott, shout out. And my sessions would last under an hour, 4 sessions a week. You can do a lot with 3 hours, a lot. Question number 5, what's your go-to way to break through a plateau? Well, a plateau happens it depends what the plateau is. Is it a strength plateau? You might need a deload. Is it a fat loss plateau? Your calorie deficit probably isn't a deficit anymore. As you get leaner, you burn less calories just by surviving. You're a smaller individual, you need less food. I'd say the first thing if you hit a plateau is that actually analyze, right? Have you been adherent? Have you been doing the things, showing up to every session, being on plan with food, eating the right sort of food? I'd analyze first, have you been following the plan? Because if you haven't, you just need to come back to accuracy in the plan and you'll break through the plateau. A lot of the time though, plateaus are, especially for people that have been consistent and they've been doing the work, it just comes about when you need recovery, right? This is something that I've learned, not just in training, and this is where I talk about training teaches me everything I need to know about life. Because not just in training, but I've realized I actually need breaks from work, right? I need periods of rest. So if you have hit a plateau, take a little break. Sometimes you just can't hit your sessions with the same level of intensity, or you're struggling on your diet just because you're getting that mental fatigue because you've been chasing a goal for so long. So sometimes all that you need is a little bit of mental switch off, a little bit of unwind. Take a week, you're not gonna lose all your gains, then get back into it. So first, have you been following the plan? If yes, maybe take a break, come back to it. If it's still not working, then maybe you need to assess the methods that you're using. If you're not growing, try to train a little bit more intense. Try to add some more volume, add some more sets per week, add some more food. And if you're still resistant to the variables, maybe it's time to take a break. And that goes for saying like long-term bulks and long-term cuts. When you've been bulking for so long, you're gonna stop responding as well as you would have done off the back of a diet when you're lean, insulin sensitivity is up. You're basically, like muscle's gonna stop slabbing on, right? In the same way that if you've been dieting for so long, you're gonna have to start pulling those calories, increasing that cardio, increasing that activity. Sometimes a little refeed period is just enough to catapult you at the plateau. That's what you do if you hit a plateau. But it is context dependent. It depends on where you're at. Question number 6, how important is exercise form compared to just lifting heavier? This is a damn good question. I always say generally with my clients, especially if they are newer, get the form first. It's important that you know how to move under control, how to engage the right muscles, right? Form and accuracy is something, it should be a standard. There should be a standard that's set. If you don't standardize that form, right, the way that you're moving, the tempo with which you train, when you try and progressive overload, it's gonna muddy the water because maybe 1 week, right, you've hit a bit of a strength plateau and then you throw a bit more weight on and then you increase weight, right, for the same amount of reps, and that seems good. However, if we compare how you moved the week before and when you've taken that weight progression, if you're not getting the same range of motion, if you're moving a little bit quicker, if you've lost the control and accuracy, have you actually progressed? I would argue the answer is no, you probably haven't progressed. From the simple fact being, even though you've made the load of the movement heavier, you've actually made that movement easier by changing the way in which you move. So in terms of what's the most important, I just think they're both important. I think it's hard to place more importance on one over the other. They're both very important. If you're not lifting heavy with intensity, progressively overloading, you're not gonna make progress. If your form starts to fall to shit, you're naturally gonna hit a plateau anyway. So I'd say with something like that, you kinda need both. I wouldn't neglect either. I wouldn't chase heavy weight in disregard to the form, and I wouldn't focus too much on form and then never add any more weight or never get stronger, because you need both. Question number 7, how do you adjust training for someone with a 9 to 5 desk job versus an active job? Weight training is going to look very much the same unless they have potential, not injuries, but if they have tightnesses, in a sense that they've got very tight hips, their mobility is very poor because they've been used to this sedentary lifestyle, then exercise selection is going to change a little bit naturally, because you're going to have to account for the fact that they maybe can't squat to the same ability that somebody who has an active job can, because they're used to moving more. So exercise selection is very important because you want people to be able to perform movements that are comfortable for them, that they can reliably increase on strength on. So it's important to assess how that person can actually move. Back when I used to do in-person PT, right, I used to do things called movement assessment, which is where I basically would assess through a series of movements what the ability to move is. And this is something that I will still do with people who are newer trainees to see what they're capable of. But if mobility isn't an issue and they can perform the exercises to a similar standard, weight training will look pretty much exactly the same. Apart from maybe somebody, depending on how active their job is, if it's incredibly active, naturally there's going to be more of a recovery demand, right? Somebody who's a manual labourer, they might not be able to do the same volume that somebody at a desk job has because they've got essentially more time at rest, right, sitting in a desk. So that's something to think about as well. The biggest thing from a training perspective is more so when it comes to fat loss, but it's just as important in a bulk as well, where you place your calories. Activity is the biggest issue when it comes to people that are sedentary because they're not getting as many steps, they're not burning as many calories through movement. Their calories would have to come very low. So I would put a vital importance. I've got a few clients now that have sort of 9 to 5 jobs. There's one that works from home, one that commutes a long way, so it's very difficult. The biggest thing with them is finding the way in which we can get them to move a little bit more right throughout the day. If that is just mini breaks to get up and take some steps around every hour, whatever it might be. Utilising lunch breaks, if your job allows, eat during your work hours while you're working at the desk. Is it enjoyable? No, but then it's going to give you that opportunity on these lunch breaks to go out for a walk. Same thing first of the morning, get a walk in after work. So yeah, provided they can move in the same way, training looks much the same. It's activity really between those two jobs. It's going to be the biggest issue, particularly when we look at fat loss clients as well. Number 8, is cardio really going to kill my gains or is that a myth? Good question. Cardio is not going to kill your gains, not unless you are doing an ungodly amount of cardio. Especially, and Editing J put this on the screen somewhere, but there is what is a recommended minimum amount to cut for health and fitness. Cardio, having a good cardiovascular system, right, is actually going to improve your ability to recover quicker, be healthier, longevity. A lot of people think cardio kills gains. In the long term, I would actually argue it's the opposite. If you're healthier, you've got better blood flow, you've got a better recovery ability because your lungs and your heart work better. You're going to be able to train for a longer period, hit those sessions harder. You'll know this from like legs training where you'll see some people and they're in the middle of like a set of leg press and they'll stop before they've actually reached anywhere near failure. And the reason that they've stopped isn't because they can't do any more with their legs, it's because they're actually breathless. You don't want breath to be a limiting factor. If breath is the limiting factor, you're not training your legs, you're training your cardiovascular system. So cardio doesn't kill gains, not unless you're running a lot per week or if you're doing a lot of excess cardio. There is a certain point where there will be diminishing returns. I'd imagine that's an ideal amount of cardio for like longevity and just general fitness. If you start doing a lot more, again, it's going to start to impact your recovery demand. And if your recovery demand is more from cardio, guess what? Your recovery ability with your muscle building, with your weight training isn't going to be as effective. But most people won't be doing anywhere near the cardio necessary to get to that point. Number 9, what are the most overrated and underrated exercises in your opinion? Cream of rice break, I'll be right back. Cream of rice check, baby. This is about as sweet of a treat as I get in the dieting phase. Oh, fantastic. So what do I think is overrated and underrated? What I see these days so much, especially on social media, is this big thing about optimal training, science-based training, basically trying to find what is the most optimal movement to create progression. I think that's overrated. And I think now some of the most basic movements, bench, squat, deadlift, are being bastardized. And I think therefore these days they're actually underrated. And the issue with that science-based optimal approach is just look at any bodybuilder, right? Natural or otherwise. Who's got big? Most of the greats. What are most of them doing? The basic bread and butter movements. They're getting strong, they're being consistent for years. The problem with these like over-optimized, super scientific movements is it's always changing as well, right? If it's always changing, clearly what came before isn't fucking working. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's where, especially more these days, I've just been more old school with it. Because I just think, even if there is some perceived level of benefit from the optimal movements, if you have to keep changing it, it's hard to track your progression in the long term in terms of like lift numbers. It also takes longer to set up, and you're constantly stressing about, is this the right thing? It's paralysis via analysis, which you will have heard me say in content a lot, short form content. You're doing too much. Choose movements that feel good, that you enjoy, that you can progress on, and you will grow. Overrated is the new way of science-based, underrated, old school mentality. Beautiful. Number 10, how do you keep making gains if you've been lifting for years and progress slows down? You're asking a silly question there. Progress in the beginning is quick. You've never trained before. You're responsive, it's a new stimulus. Your body's going to adapt very quickly. As time goes on, naturally, progress slows down. This is just one of the uncomfortable, harsh truths, it is going to get slow. But within that time, you probably will have learned how beneficial training is for your lifestyle, your mental health. So you're probably going to keep showing up and do the process anyway, provided you do see some level of progression over time. I think the biggest thing, and it depends on where your goals are, right? For most people, you probably just want to drop some fat, build a little bit of muscle, and then maintain that, right? And then if you're only putting in so much effort, you should expect maintenance, right? But I think if you want to keep developing your physique, you've got to keep getting better at each individual little part of the puzzle, right? If your progress has slowed down, assess how is ways that I can train better? How can I be more consistent? How can I find that next gear to train with more intensity, to take those progressions that I was struggling to before? Start taking micro progressions. I've recently bought these 0.5 kilo plates. In the next bulk, if I get stuck, I'm gonna start slapping those on the side of my bench press. You're taking a 1 kilogram progression, right, over the course of 2 weeks. Oh, but that's so slow. Do that every week for a year, you've added 20 kilograms to your bench. That's solid progression right there. But you've got to start optimizing things. How can you improve your diet? How can you be more consistent with that? How can you start sleeping a little bit better? Start looking at the places where you think they might be limiting, right? Start looking at the places where you're missing things. And if you really sit down and think about it with no distractions, you'll kind of know. And after that point, people do think progress slows down. I think it was like my 3rd or 4th year of training, I finally took the plunge and got a coach. Guess what? I made almost better progress than I'd ever made before, because having somebody in your corner, somebody that you can trust, and they just say, do this, you can just do it, action on it. You do need to be coachable in order for it to work. That took my progress from good progress in the beginning, started to plateau. I thought I'd hit my natty limit, bollocks. And then I got a coach, and then it started moving up again. And to be fair, I'm confident that this next bulk, given everything that I know and that I've got the accountability in place now, will probably be one of my best bulks ever. Number 11, what's the simplest way to track progressive overload without complicating it? Right, I keep a logbook. Everybody should be keeping a logbook. This is almost a given, right? Editing, Jake, if you can record a little video of my logbook on what I keep on there, right? The simplest way is just to every day, write the date, write the name of the session in your logbook. You can use your phone notes if you want to. I know some people do, or if you're using an app like with a coach, that's fine as well. What I do, I write the movement. I write the weight I'm using. However many sets I've done, I write the reps. So you've got your sets, your reps, very simple. What I will do before each session is write all of that out. And for each set, I put what I did the week before, right? Or well, not necessarily the week before, but the previous session, right? So I hit chest 1 week, the next week, I come in, I write down what I did next week. I sit there at the start of the session, write all of that down. Every movement that I get to, that's what I've got to beat. That's it. It doesn't need to be much more complicated than that. One thing that I do also like to do is at the start of every new phase of training, when my splits change, when my movements change, I do make some notes for each movement about the setup, because I want consistent setup. How high is the seat on a machine? Where do I grip on the bar if I'm using a barbell? What level of incline is the seat, right? I'll make some notes of that. When it comes to tracking progress or your progressive overload, that's all you need. Set some reps and just aim to increase that. What I would also do every now and again is it does help to record your lifts and see, coming back to that previous point, am I actually moving in the same way that I was before, or has my form changed? Because if the form has changed, it's harder to actually assess, are we progressing? Number 12, how do you know when you're training too hard versus not hard enough? In intensity terms, I think it's very hard to, unless you're using intensifiers, right, drop sets, force reps, if you're just training to a failure point, there's really no way of training too hard. Again, as long as the accuracy or the form that you're using doesn't break down. So if you're not doing drop sets or anything, I'd say for a beginner, if you're in your first year or two, maybe training to maximum failure might be too much. Leaving a rep or two in reserve is fine. You're gonna make great progress anyway, the stimulus is enough. But for most people that are probably watching this, most like my normal clients, you can't really necessarily train too hard. You can train too much, you can do too much work. If volume gets too high and you're struggling to recover from that volume, that's too much. But on a set-by-set basis, I generally take all my sets to failure, or at least just before. You can't really train too hard. How you're not training hard enough? Very simple. How did your last rep look? Can you honestly say that you had no more left in the tank? Very simple thought experiment, right? You only need to do this for one set, right? In one of your next, a workout or a day where you feel particularly fresh, right? I want you to go in and you're used to training at a certain level, right? What I want you to do for one set is take as much time as you need, as much rest before the set, really sit down, catch your breath, you're ready to go. Make it like the first set of the session if you need to. Look at again what you did the previous week. Make the decision, ultra focus on that next set. Honestly, cut the noise. Maybe no music if you need to, music if you do need to. The music could actually help because it can get you in that mind frame of just give that energy and send that set balls to the fucking wall. As if someone's got a gun to your head, really challenge yourself. What a lot of people find is where they thought they were training to failure or near failure. If you really send just one set, just commit to doing one set, because if you're thinking you're going to do it all session, right, you've already got this thing of like, I've got all this work coming after, just one set, just commit to that. What you will find 9 times out of 10 is you'll get more reps than you did before. And then you're not training hard enough. Especially with people, oh my God, I see some people sometimes on like leg extension, they're like on their phone in their set. Oh, what are you doing? Treat your set with focus. There is no really training too hard, again, unless you're doing intensifiers, which can impact your recovery, even for more advanced people if you're doing it too much. But it is very easy. The majority of people are simply not training hard enough. Question number 13, I think. What's the biggest mistake beginners make when starting in the gym? I think these days, again, come back to the previous point, with all the information out there, they keep changing plan, they keep trying to optimize, they keep trying to change things. They also sometimes are worse at doing too much work. Especially as a beginner, you don't need a lot of volume to grow. High frequency, the more often you train a muscle group, you can do a lot of that, but you don't need a lot of volume. You need to learn how to train hard. You need to learn how to move. Once you got those two things down, and you've basically learned how to move your body, right, how to connect with muscle, you got most of what you need to know from that. But cut the noise. You don't need anything fancy. Don't learn from short form content necessarily, because it's just so confusing. You're just absorbing all this information, you can't apply it. Get a very simple training split. Get good at some really basic movements. Follow that, you'll get great progress. When things slow down, then start to learn and research. But don't do it on fucking Instagram and TikTok, right? And I say that as somebody that loads Instagram content. A lot of it is just gonna confuse the fuck out of you. And a lot of them are just wrong, plain and simply wrong. I think the other thing is people focus so much on the gym in the beginning. Your nutrition, your recovery, just sleeping. I don't think of it as you can out-train a diet or you can just do this one thing and get results. Think of it like it's this whole cohesive puzzle, right? You've got all the puzzle pieces. You need to have some degree or level of competency in all of them to get a result. If you're not sleeping, you're not gonna grow muscle, you're not gonna lose fat. If you're not eating right, you're not gonna get stronger, you're not gonna lose fat. And then if you're not training right, don't expect to see progression, plain and simple. Focus on the basics, get really good at the basics, that's 80%. There's this principle, I talk about all the time, that basically 20% of the work, that will be the basics in this case, constitutes to 80% of the results. So focus there. Forget what supplements you're taking, forget all of that. Forget optimal movements, forget changing your plan, follow the basics, that will be enough. And also, if you are struggling, get a coach. They're gonna teach you so much in a short space of time, even if you're with them for 3 months. You're gonna learn so much in that time, it's gonna be easy. You're probably spending money, or probably have already invested so much money in the gym. You're probably buying gym clothes, right? Probably buying fucking expensive Gymshark clothing. Let's do the work first. Number 14, I think. How much do you think stress, work, and life impacts your physique? Heavily. So this is something that a lot of people they really struggle with. I think especially these days, right? Because life is inherently stressful. It's very stimulating at the minute. Most people have got dopamine-seeking brains. They're very stressed out. They're stimulated all the time. Work is demanding. Life is confusing. AI is coming out. Am I going to lose my job? Definitely, stress is inherently catabolic, right? When you're in a stressed out state, your hormones can go out of whack, cortisol rises. This is catabolic, basically meaning muscle reducing. I think it's very important if you want to go far and get really good results. And this is one of the biggest benefits, right, from training that I think a lot of people miss, is it's going to give you some routine. It's going to teach you some discipline. It's going to give you some structure in your week, if done correctly. And having those things, right, you think about, you do it for a physique, but then after you realize, oh, actually I've been really organized. I've sorted my food out. I know what I'm doing this day. I know what I'm doing that day. I've structured my time correctly. Oh, now I can actually rest, and I can rest without feeling guilty because I should have done X, Y, Z. And that rest, there's something, again, talking, like I was talking about earlier, but I finally realized that actually recovery and taking time off is super important. Having rest days and getting your work done, this is rich, right, because I'm recording this at midnight. But this is, you actually get your evenings, you can win your evenings back. Win your evenings, right? Or like win your weeks, so you can actually take your weekend off and you're not chasing your tail. It's so important. Because if life is chaotic, how do you expect to give yourself focus in your gym sessions? How do you expect to be consistent with your food if your life is all over the place? That's one of the biggest challenges, and that's one of the biggest things that I actually deal with clients. Like something that a lot of coaches might not do, but I want to know, what's your work routine? what training split we're going to choose that's best going to work around that, so that you're more likely to turn up, so that we're not, training doesn't begin to be this thing that makes your life harder or doesn't take into account your lifestyle. A lot of coaches just don't ask those questions. I need to know, what does your week look like? What do you get up to on the weekend? How can we structure this so not only getting results become easier, but it makes your life easier as well, because it should be fun. So I think work and life stress definitely is going to lead to worse results, but you shouldn't allow those things to become excuses. In fact, it's like Ryan Holiday, right, a Stoic educator. He talks about the obstacle is the way. If your life is busy, if your life is hard, that is going to be the very thing that teaches you how to be more organised, how to be prepared. So see it as an opportunity to get on top of stuff. Don't cry about it, because what option have you got? Life is always going to be busy. Work is going to be busy. Work is going to be stressful. These are things that are always going to be in place. Learn how to thrive through it regardless. And yes, if you don't get on top of these things, don't expect to make good progress, because you're going to be less consistent. If you're stressed out, results are just worse across the board. That's my opinion on that. Question number, I don't know what question it is now, 15 I think. Is it true if I grow my legs, my dick will look smaller? So we're getting into some funnier questions now. Yes, bodybuilding is an illusion, right? The bigger an area gets, the smaller another area gets, right? Visually, right, in terms of perspective. If there's a very large human next to a very small human, that human's going to look smaller, and that large human is going to look bigger. One thing that we do in bodybuilding is we grow our back, because it makes our waist look smaller. We grow our legs. By that X frame, right, your waist looks even smaller. Guess what? Unfortunately, your cock is on your waistline. If you have massive legs, your penis is going to look smaller in proportion to those legs. So be very careful if you're not gifted, right? You don't grow your legs too much. Interestingly, if you are a person, a larger individual that's carrying more body fat, I remember seeing a thing, and this is so true by the way, that it's something like for every so many pounds, like 30 pounds or 40 pounds of weight of fat that a man loses, you get an extra ½ inch on your penis. So what's my advice? Grow some legs, but don't be a fat cunt. Get rid of the fat as well. Aesthetics. And it's not about the size, right? It's about the motion in the ocean. Apparently, I don't know. I'm perfectly content with the size of mine and the size of my quads. Although I did skip legs for a whole year, so maybe that's... Anyway. Question number 16. Do the ends justify the means? So I believe this question is almost in regards to if you do a bad thing, but for the good in the long term, right? Or if you've got a positive goal in mind, or you're trying to create positive change, but in order to do that, you have to do a bad thing to get it. Is that justified? I think of that thought experiment where the train's going down the track, and the train is currently, if it stays on this specific track, it's going to kill 5 people. You're standing off on a bridge with a lever. If you were to pull said lever, the train is going to switch tracks, it's going to go to another track, and it's going to kill 1 person. So, the dilemma is, do you choose to pull the lever? Because in doing so, you save the 5 people on this track, but this single person on the other track dies. So, by the maths of the equation, if you pull the lever, you've saved 4 people, but in saving 4 people, you've chosen that another person who wasn't going to die if you didn't pull the lever is now going to die. I like these kind of questions. I think it's context dependent. How bad is the bad thing? And what is the greater good? Another one is like, would you kill a family member to save an entire country or to save the entire world? It's a real moral, it's really hard morally to decide what you should do, right? Because if you think of it logically, sure, you should do that. But I did remember there was some kind of study about people that use bad means to get to a good outcome are more sociopathic on the spectrum. So I think it's context dependent. Like another example could be, maybe you make a load of money by ripping people off, but then you give a load of charity. I would say in those situations, almost doing the bad thing for the greater good should be a bit of a last resort, unless the pressure's on. Try and find another way, do it morally. This is how I come at from the coaching angle, right? Because I get the social media game and I get the whole sales thing. I'm pretty good at sales, right? But the more that I've come on and more that I've coached, when I actually have calls with prospective clients now, I'm not salesy because I want to come at it from an angle. And basically, I think the last 6 or 7 calls that I've had, people have actually just signed up, right? Because I guess that what I'm putting out now is speaking better and I don't need to sell myself on the call. But I don't want to manipulate a person into buying, because what's going to happen, they might be with me for a few months, I'll make some more money. It wasn't the right fit for them, there wasn't the right client, we didn't have that relationship built, which is so important. So what's the point in me bagging a bit of extra money if it's going to tarnish my reputation, my dignity, and I'm not going to enjoy working with that person either. See, I think personally, I would always look for a better route out of it. But I think depending on the thing, anti-hero vibes, I think if you have to do a bad thing for the greater good, I wouldn't say context dependent, that I'd be unwilling to do that if I believed in the message or whatever I was trying to change. Question number 17. Can you build muscle by just getting a pump every day, or do you need to go too far? You can build muscle just by getting a pump. One of the mechanisms for hypertrophy is what we call metabolic stress, which is where, that's essentially what a pump is. When you train a muscle, there is waste product that goes into that. There's more blood in the area, there's fluid. You can develop muscle that way, but I would say the failure, and as a result of training to failure, the progressive overload that you will see over time, if all of your puzzle pieces are in the right place, is far more important for muscle growth. It's the intensity. The intensity is what matters, right? And doing adequate amount of work. Just training for a pump, it's fun. You're not pushing yourself so hard. Will you make some progress? Maybe. But if you're going to failure and getting stronger over time, that's a guarantee. And something I always talk about in coaching is I don't fuck with the chance. What do we see working consistently for multiple individuals? The intensity. And naturally, if you actually are pushing yourself and training intense, you're going to get a pump regardless. So question number 20. Lifting weights with high volume or heavier weights with lower volume. I think these should be seen as independent variables. The amount of volume that you use is basically necessitated by the amount of volume that you can recover from. When you're a new trainee, you don't need as much volume. They're very low, and in fact, if you go too high, you can't recover from it. As you get more advanced, you might need more volume. That's why bro split is maybe not perfect for beginners. You can still progress on it, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's better for more advanced trainees because they can hit more volume per body part. Which even that isn't strictly true, because the way that you set your sessions up, right? I'd say maybe 7 exercises is the limit per session, and maybe 3-4 sets, that's the upper limit. And you can still get adequate volume across the whole physique. So to come to the question specifically, lighter weights with high volume. And again, people say like, oh, should I go heavy or should I train with more reps? Again, they're like almost independent variables. You'll have a rep range, right, for each movement, and the rep range is what dictates the weight that you use. Because when you're falling within that rep range, you need to be using the weight that gets you into that rep range, and you're also hitting close to or to failure. Simple as. So when people say, should I be using light or heavy weight? It depends on the rep range first, and then you need to be training to intensity. I would say lighter weight with high volume, it's gonna burn a load of calories, but if you're using lighter weights and you're not training intense and the rep ranges aren't super high, 30's got the upper limit anyway. Personally, I don't program anything above 20. Lighter weights with high volume isn't gonna progress you. Heavier weights, in this example, if we're assuming that you're training more intense with lower volume, is definitely going to progress you. Again, high intensity training, what I was talking about before, when I initially switched to that, I made some very good progress. So when people say, do I go light or do I go heavy? For me, it's like one of these questions, it's a silly question. Because you go as heavy as you can, while still maintaining good form. And if you've got a given rep range, while remaining in that rep range. If you go over the rep range, you need to increase the weight, or maybe even slow down the movement. If you're below the rep range, you're going a little bit heavy, take it back. So really, weight used is dependent upon rep range, because you should be training. Intensity is a variable that doesn't change. Question number 21. I don't know, I've lost count now. On a scale of 9 to 10, how gay are you? 9 being really gay and 10 being 100% gay. The problem with this question is you've boxed me in at the upper range of the gay spectrum. I can only pick between 9 and 10, which therefore means I can't honestly answer the question, because I personally wouldn't put myself 9 to 10, right? I don't know if I'm all the way down at 1, but I don't believe I'm this high. So you're making it very hard to answer this question. The question I pose back to you, the person that asked this question, why are you asking the question? Is this a projection? Are you hoping that I am gay? Because I would say, based on the question, you've boxed me in at the upper end, you want me to be gay, which probably means that you're gay, and that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it's a strange question to ask. I pose another question off the back of that. Can you do something that is gay, but not enjoy it, and not therefore be gay? Is the act what makes you gay? Or is the intention and the enjoyment of the act what makes you gay? Deeper questions. Boys and girls, we're learning, we're testing ourselves. Number 22, best movement to grow triceps, please, Big Daddy. When it comes to tricep, the biggest head of the tricep is the long head. So if we're going down the optimal training route, right, anything that biases the long head, a lot of this is stuff that is overhead, right? I like overhead stuff. Skull crushers are fucking mint. Dumbbell skull crushers, keep it nice and simple. Anything that already puts in a stretch position, overhead stuff is going to bias the long head a little bit more. Plain and simply though, going back to the previous point, get strong on your compound lifts. Things that are going to assist that tricep growth. I think what a lot of people do in their accessory work, right, if they're training legs, if they're training arms, they don't treat it with the same respect and intensity as they do their compounds, right? Especially because for a lot of people, you train your arms after you've trained your chest, and you're already fatigued a little bit. So what you can do, if you've got arms that are lagging, to prioritize them a little bit more, you could have a dedicated arm day where you know that you're gonna have a little bit more energy, a little bit more oomph to hit them a little bit harder. You can even move triceps to the beginning of your push day if they are severely underdeveloped. But really anything works, right? Dips can be a great builder. I'm a big fan of dips, very heavy on the tricep. I'm also a big fan of close grip Smith press, right? So it's where you basically get a really close grip. I feel a really good contraction off that. Anything that you're gonna be able to get your tricep really lengthened, drive it through. But you potentially buy some overhead work, but just getting stronger, mate. If you get stronger on your triceps, treat them with care and attention. Run a little bit of a phase of training where you prioritize arms a little bit more. That'll bring them up. But in terms of specific exercise, nothing but the basics. Bench, dips, overhead work, overhead presses. And then for accessory, overhead triceps. Don't neglect your push downs either. Skull crushers, dumbbell skull crushers can be chef's kiss when done correctly. Get strong. And that is it for the bulk of the questions, but the final question is from my brother and current client, if I can even call him a client. I'm just helping him out a little bit. And this is a damn fucking good question. This is how you know my brother is smarter than me. And it'll be one to watch, by the way, because he's got some very big goals, right, moving forward in a fitness perspective. Not bodybuilding, he's not the same as me, but in the next couple of years, he's gonna be doing some cool shit. And I'm gonna be around to help him do that. Same message, same purpose. Anyway, question from my brother. Question for the Q&A, probably a way to better word it, but obviously as a coach you provide the program for a client, and obviously this aligns with their specific goals. So programming means like the plan that you give them, right? And the physical aspect of the training, so what is more significant to achieve those goals through the programming and the physical aspect of the training, or the interpersonal coaching relationship and the client's response to the session on any given day or week, emotionally and mentally guiding them through the plan? What a fucking question. Something that I see with a lot of the clients that come my way, right? This is what I see, is they come because they've hit some kind of plateau. Going back to the previous question, it's all linking together, I'm liking this. And they initially come to me, bro, I need a more optimal plan. I need a plan that's gonna work. I need a diet plan. I need you to tell me what to do. Which, that's the bread and butter. Without that, without doing the right things, right, you're not gonna get a result. So the plan is obviously important, it's the foundation. But what is most people's problem? It's not that they don't know what to do. Everyone knows to lose body fat. You eat less, you move more. Calorie deficit. We know this. It's been drilled into you. Don't fall for the bullshit. Don't fall for like when people are trying to repackage what's already. We know what works, generally speaking. You do know that you should be training, right? I know I've just given some long, convoluted answers and gone into detail on specific subjects. Generally, people know enough to make progress. They do. Why don't people see progress? Again, it's all linking together. Life stress, work stress. They don't prioritize their training as much as they maybe would like to, or that they possibly can. They're not as consistent as they need to be. They're not turning up and doing the work. They might think that they are, but unless we're getting them to track the data and track things, when we do that, we realize that actually maybe they're not doing everything that they need to. So again, going back to my previous point, a lot of time people come to me and say, I need the plan, mate. I need a good plan. I need you to teach me how to do things better. And we do that as a coach. But what gets them far better results than they've ever got before when they work with me? It's that relationship that I build with them, which then leads to the conversations where we can talk about their habits, their behaviors, the things that they know they should be doing that they're not doing. How do I get them to take action? How do I spur them into action? That comes from the interpersonal relationship. That's why I'm not scared about ChatGPT taking my job just yet. Because you can't build a relationship with that thing, or at least not a proper one, not a human to human relationship. You can ask ChatGPT to set you up with a plan and it will do a decent job at it. Not perfect, not right now, but a decent job. but he's not going to be messaging you, calling you, keeping you to account. It's just a robot. You're not going to treat it with the same level of respect, right? You don't know that that robot, it does everything that it needs to in seconds, right? You know that if you have a coach on board, they're investing time and energy into your journey. You've built that relationship. You also know you can go to them with problems, not even training related. A lot of my clients open up about things that, for some of them, it's stuff that they've never even spoken to anyone else before, because I'm this outside party, right? They know they're not going to judge me. It's certain things that maybe they're not yet comfortable to talk to friends, family, partners about. They'll ask me. So that relationship that you're talking about, that's how we start to see and establish real change, because we can look into behaviors around food, your emotional eating, why you don't give your all in your gym sessions, right? We can really dig into that. The plan is fucking useless if it's not being followed. So although it's the foundation, what you need, potentially even beneath that, the bedrock, is a person that's going to learn and work with you and build a relationship to work together to see how can we get you to action on this? How can we get you to do the very things that you need to do in order to make progress? So out of the question, what matters more? The programming and the plan, or the relationship and the behavioral change? Always the relationship and the behavioral change. Because the information's out there. You can go and ask Google, even before ChatGPT came out. You can go and do the work if you want to. But you don't. Why? Because you've got other things that you're stressed about. All these other things. So what do? You come to a human who understands your struggles, hears them, offers solutions to them, and is going to have the hard conversations with you when things aren't good enough. He's going to know when to push you, and he's going to also know when to pull you, right? Based on the things that you're dealing with. That's more important than any plan. That's the reason that you have been researching what's the best training split, what's the best diet split. Damn, what a time for it to go out. What a time for a fucking light to run out of battery. That's the reason you've done all the research, you've gathered the knowledge. You're still not seeing results because you don't have someone to pick you up when you're down. The times I progress fastest in business, the times I progress fastest in coaching, the times I progress anywhere in life is when I've had somebody that I can look to help guide me, right? So the relationship matters more. And that concludes the first Q&A. If you watched all the way to the end, you're a real one. Hopefully back to weekly uploads after this. If you want to see another one, if you want to add questions in the comment section, I will screenshot them, save them for the next Q&A, which will be, I don't know when it will be, but just shoot some questions my way. I'll answer them. Appreciate you. Peace.